Hello, someone please tell Tulsi Gabbard and the leaders of countries A through Z and the individuals. Some Native Americans say that we must read each other's dreams. And there is a hyper-foreign breaching method that had since before America's founders were born, only in allowed entrenched roles against every human difference. And anyone who wanted to counter it, they had to speak up about it inside internationally monitored conversations that were also monitored themselves by overt criminal enterprises, private ones, international companies, where and how the groupings of countries. Because now, no, they even have rules with slavery. Northern colonies and southern colonies, and then America's founders were born. And that is not clear to Americans, not because they haven't been doing their homework. There are still uncharged, tactically distinct, but exploited as collusion, exploited by a method that keeps them tactically distinct natures of organized crimes that are used by a non-distinctly by a breaching method that did this before America's founders were born. This is what is recorded, the value of why and how there's a witch trials place next to Webb House in Old Wethersfield, Connecticut, where George Washington had to come to begin James Madison's plan and use /s of the plural founders unnamed behind James Madison in his plan to counter extort people at key locations and to force them this time to adapt a new way without letting them be able to sense the body that was adapting by making everyone counter extorted at the same time at key locations inside of more than 13 colonies entrenched. And they were only allowed to be voices individually grouped and together. An extent of collusion /s syntactically against themselves and against everyone else, therefore physically too. Otherwise, that body was sensed and it was adapted to say the least. Even if it was a majority of people, that body, even if it was everyone. This is why and how still it measures and maintains other things, others, ourselves are only allowed to be blamed for things that America's founders declassified for us to blame on the human fact should be nature breaching method. That which nature itself shows us only allowed predicate acts with facts, methods /s needs, natures, and styles only allowed to pretend not to realize that have to be a quality of fact should be nature capable of discerning that to overcome it. We have black people's whites of eyes to discern that there was a black people, to discern there was and still is a predicate acts with facts delivery system method and itself exploited as value as that, or as nature as criminal insidiousness, or as the difference. Nature shows us that its identity is generating two eyes, two sexes between species bodies. So we can discern that its body is generating that. There are, again, tactically juxtaposed, distinct methods of organized crimes. So that generated self-cultivated collusion /s with the propagated to generate, only capable of being consciously propagated criminal insidiousness natures, like wrongdoers on a mass scale. Like when someone tries to use the hyper-evidential, so to speak, having black people's whites of eyes alone. People use research where there are a certain type of victim /hyper-victim incapable of affording discern what's actually recorded and or nor of being honest about it regarding the campus is hyper additionally collusion slash S with that use of location slash S that was non-distinct. Southern colonies and northern colonies. No one was allowed to speak up about the multi-front impositions on all human difference slash S, otherwise that body was sentenced. James Madison went into detail about this. How why we're not supposed to entertain anyone pretend that our founder. We're supposed to show how they're being used to pretend that's debatable, to sense and to announce for the breaching method. Oh, someone's noticing that we showed them at campuses A through Z how to speak about American history, while we attacked it. And through everything the breaching method does and did, it did and does consciously through ourselves to keep names and things in the future where nature's demonstrating that, where everything else only allowed to unfold that way, is blamed. See, the breaching method had the people, the only people who could operate the phenomenon of the names of countries A through Z. More than there are hours in a day, no. Where leaders do and say things where make people mad. And in other words, but they're not being allowed to be heard because, like, well, when they make evidences, but trying to use the hyper evidential, people go, oh, they have no evidences. When they had repeated to themselves through time, the intelligence agencies and the journalists, and see the journalists, the lawyers, all these professions A through Z. We had since we were kids. We had means by correlation, means by the identity of relativity slash hyper relativity. To discern where and how theories on relativity, uses of knowledge of good and evil are being used to get over on correlation slash hypercorrelation, which is all about relativity slash hyperrelativity. 3 parts of time are all about this. There is an extent of the past that you know is true always, even though it's gone. You know it was true always, no exceptions. And relatively, that's part of how you could discern the way nature uses exceptions and exception nature, unlike any other identity of volume. Because it is no other identity of volume except for how and why it is all of them at the same time. We are distinct from other species bodies, for example, while we are non-distinct from them. 2 eyes. We need food and water. We long the ground and homeostasis, like everything to be symbiotic. All exceptions in exception nature come with demonstration slash S of the same thing. But more and more the relativity of this and to and with a special difference. Nature uses a special difference to show us things. As we are shown, we have 2 eyes. And even fish have 2 eyes. We have 2 sexes. And it is between species, so it is generate. We are discerned. We are distinct from other species bodies, but we are non-distinct from them, and we are simultaneous with them, but per a further distinct identity of simultaneous nature, per science. Even if it is non-distinct, per science, it is distinct. No, but I mean it's nature's identity. And when we pay attention, nature shows us how it is functional, being hyper invisible, but still discernible that way. For example, that's one of the ways it's hyper invisible but still discernible. It is neither our species body, nor is it the other species bodies that is generating why and how all the different species bodies have male and female. Where and how humanity generates it too. That's exception nature that come with demonstration / of the same thing. And of how it is only increasing value, its system here, and which we could ignore. But that forces it to nature to demonstrate, especially with a special difference forced from here. The special difference of ocean is being and has been forced from here. And is being even so further because we have self-value collusions with it. Right where no one has self-value collusion /s with it. But every name of the human species body, their syntax, their nature of debate contains quality aspects in nature. Quality aspect in nature. Like criminal insidiousness nature itself. There are wrongdoing acts associated with everyone's collusion /s with the predicate acts with facts method /s replacing what both our founders and nature itself communicated about how the breaching method reassigned Black pupils white civilized communications by nature when it is not only itself as criminal insidiousness nature, let alone criminal insidiousness nature, and are all forced to deny it for hyper additional reasons to having been, being then, and it to use it in the future too to show people they have to. In other words, right on Facebook has collusion /s with this through elections and through agencies. CIA and FBI have worse than criminal incompetence, valuing databases and intelligence gathering, collusion /s with every agent nature of their campus too. Already they painted fake ties, fake natures of ties between people that don't even know each other. These campuses are involved with the uses of tactically distinct natures of organized crimes and self-value collusion /s that the breaching method knew people would have at names A through Z. And where and how it knew that nature forces us to be valued simultaneously as it distinctly three ways it distinctly is increasingly prefers three parts of itself prefer distinctly how it is, like for example, it is itself nature's complete identity, that which is temporary that which is temporary from that which is lasting as itself. And the difference of that too is a distinct identity relationship it has to itself. As your complete identity has the identity of the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall /s, and the relativity of gases and positive or negative relativity here, /hyperrelativity, and water and positive or negative being demonstrated to us by nature's communications method, being an identity of volume that none other could be, while it is every identity of volume at the same time anyway. Part of how we could discern it as part of how it is functional being, hyper invisible but still discernible as itself distinctly from how it is, as the parts of speech of English grammar are about, and of the other languages. They are about the invisible but still discernible, /hyper invisible but still discernible. But anything with a name is about the invisible but still discernible. And nature's complete identity, again, it is itself distinctly as the invisible but still discernible. And this is what it wants us to how it wants us to discern. by what is true always, not denying the slightest sequence, not valuing exceptions offensively being paid to cover up how the breaching method showed them the names of the people of the sciences and the people who counter them, and or the people sensing people trying to not counter people, but amend things that, like, leaders are forced to entertain a nature of calmness and simultaneously a nature of aggression, even if one of them is not manifest in the moment. It is constantly forced entertained, where there are only so many hours in a day. And this breaching method knew that nature would increasingly demonstrate at locations, areas, and states every single place the human species body is. That a human factory nature breaching method caused all the different multi-front human rights impositions and subjects and names involvements as collusion/S. So there's everyone has self-value roles. I mean, needs, because no one wanted those collusions at the same time. But then through instances in life, it's only permitted. And so now when we're at fact treatment to subject treatment, exception nature, it is incapable of, people are incapable of defending their styles of logic, natures of logic, forced by nature itself to be manifest that way. In many prey vaccines, like you just think. Harper courts have roles with a whole bunch of drugs and medicines crimes, with the Connecticut's district court people, and with New Britain Superior Court with a bunch of people involved, with a whole bunch of different countries, and with overt criminal enterprises and private ones since before everyone was a kid, and now with terrorists too. There is a Mendez police officer. I never had a conversation with him at the Wethersfield Police Department or anywhere else. He's involved with digital crimes, with much worse, that a principal child abuser reportedly was put into prison for it, for upskirt pictures and things like that, with a shopping center. Now, there are more people that have been involved with the shopping centers, with the agencies, tied to a Mike Pandol, tied to a Ray Cololo, a Rick Sanfaglione, as one of the ones involved with a Brian Silver too, and a Leahy family that faked conversations and ties to me since I was a kid. And he had the little kids and his family members with people that weren't in my classrooms putting fake ties to me, fake nature ties in sequence shifts. And people I don't know at all, and people that mix, that pretend other, and mix with people that were used through the time where people are going to go, they say something and no one responds, and then they just let someone else put it in, and they just keep repeating things. Then they can't go back and have one investigator look at details properly. Because what's actually recorded, there are means shown. The names of the people, the sciences of their whole careers were used criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, raw. This is not to blame them. This is to show the predicate acts with facts method and the collusion/S. Because those are the roles with all that. Even the self-value, where they're humanity voicings anyway. There's a worse involved there. Even if it's no longer standing. There proves there was. There was a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise that consciously made all it, while it was making, it re-engineered all identities of integrity. Consciously, by forcing, tricking, hurting, and persuading. The only people who could operate the phenomenon of the names of countries to use that to defend themselves from what the breaching method caused, specifically to have them defend themselves back treating nature wise and physically simultaneously, wrongly, and knowing that nature would demonstrate that. But it also knew that it would have them countered, that would have that countered wrongly and or correctly, but leaving out the breaching method too, missing that. And then it built everyone more and more simultaneously incapable of affording to have unobstructed the obligations by the identity the sciences share, and short words with convictions proper, whether formally or anyone else, and especially differentially. Because if we don't have, in other words, if we don't have freedom of speech and we have all our rights outside of courts and online defended, what good is it? You can't go in other words. Especially because we still have all sides of cases in the interbranch at the same time and the news at the same time. Names next to relative body dumping spots, campuses used for organized crime methods /S are recorded. But that's the same thing that is used to use the identities of the law remotely. They have the judges, oh, but we have faith in our people. You know, they also have delusions that are only there in their minds because of how they replaced what James Madison communicated, had declassified with our plural founders, and how there is sensing for the breaching method and denouncing for it. When anyone pretends it's debatable that James Madison is the only founder that they had the security to let us know the name of, they are also announcing that someone's going to create sense or awareness of what everyone's missing about how there's collusion /S at the campuses, replacing what our founders said, pretending it's science, using the records of what people say, pretending not to realize and keeping them delusions. Rob, we can fix that. But replacing how there was slavery and only collusions only allowed northern colonies, southern colonies, replacing how the only founder we know the name of explained how and why they wanted nothing to do with all those impositions on human rights, every one of them. But they were all multi-front, and we're only allowed to address them in the breaching method way /S, which is not just collusions with the formal list, but overt criminal enterprises, private ones, international companies, the news, the fake news. The presidents, plural. So that's why it keeps them fighting with each other too. They don't have a legal help because the names of the people, the sciences, were a victim /hyper victim of what the same thing that forces, tricks, hurt, persuades, keeps that the only outcome /S, to have their counters too as tools, keeping blamed other things, others ourselves, nature's demonstration /S of it. Nature shows us that all those multi-front impositions on human difference /S, they were simultaneously about the breaching method uses of it. They are about a human fact treatment nature breaching method. And so that education, experts on science had obligations to discern how people saying, oh, America's founders owned slaves, and how the books saying it. Or the book should be blamed before the kids. The reason that's gotten away with is both the kids and the books and the teachers count defending our founders as other than the ones unknown. They're also replacing how there was James Madison's plan, how and why they had to counter extort everyone. We were supposed to understand that three ways manifest were styles of torture with fact, cheating nature, therefore physics. We're styles of extortion with fact, cheating nature, therefore physics. We're styles and methods of slavery with only permitted. Collusion as collusion slash S, only permitted. And it was checked. Everyone, an extent of collusion slash S, entertained against all differences and only allowed to counter while they're countering too. Everyone was missing how the breaching method needs increasingly nature's demonstrations of itself to be and to stay blamed on other things, others, ourselves wrongly until that becomes true. And then it builds that more and more. The things like criminal foreign influences, we would get right over it if it weren't for the hyper criminal foreign influences. The all sides. You guys are named self-value. Humanity voicing student assets, suits and ties, counters and exceptions. That's your solution to speak, pretend you speak about wisdom and knowledge. With nuclear, even with guns to fix things. Well, now, before cars, before America's founders were born, there are houses that are still standing in suburbs. They look alike from America to Russia to Ukraine. When you guys speak about war, you only have the Civil War understood. A breaching method taught you. And so we have to simultaneously, where people need, there's mass, look at the cities across the world, the suburbs that need food from other locations. Think about that breaching method against Native American even, since before America's founders were born. That was facilitated by tactically denaturing the ground. We know this to an extent. But where things are known, we can discern those truths are being and have been used for lies, to screen lies too. In other words, like when any president says something, they'll start saying, but I'll tell you something, when everyone's missing is how it's concentrated, only concentrated corruption there or at the crime scenes they bring up where there are collusions with it there. Every collusion and then them all together, it's increasingly with a hyper-foreign and breaching method involved as a scientific value, as a hyper-evidential value. Oh, what's the hyper-evidential? Having black people's whites of eyes. While even sharks have black people's whites of eyes. Even the bugs, apparently, it looks like they have two eyes. The birds, the fish, the chimpanzee. I'll see. I'll try to discern. There is a semi-ancient trap. And nature wants us to refer to the time that way, showing us 3 parts of time are bound. Here gathered around as yet, a special difference here. That forced to part, to leave, lease of Hadis. This is more probably having been revealed as a scientific term, an observation of what happens when anyone values using, valued in the past, having used systems of bridge. Nature will keep demonstrating that until it's appreciated that happened. And then it shows us how to make positive value nature progression. When we're doing it now, let alone people are doing it now and they're needing to self-value that haven't been done in the past while being used remotely, which nature demonstrates at the same time, as the breaching method knew it would. Where how breaching method, that's what nature is demonstrating to us. The civil rights against women, against Native Americans, against black peoples, against whites of eyes. At the same time, all those different subjects are about the human factory nature breaching method. Instead of making that clear, like our founders communicated about it, they make it about a North and South. They replaced why and how our founders, James Madison explained how and why, if anyone brought up any of those subjects, they were sensed relative to what had none of them as its agenda. Had how they were all distinct natures of organized crimes, specifically to have a whole bunch of methods, plural, predicate acts methods, that it shows them that they could use to hide collusion /S with itself. It's the breaching method is the one that perfected A through Z being able to speak about voting value. And or in their use of /S of exceptions, like where and how, in other words, where they call it regime change or whatever like that. There's a breaching method involved with people A through Z, speaking for American unity or independence. We are a unity as a human species body of independent individual bodies. For how nature teaches about unity and independence. We have what nature communicates, still pretended theory. And the books are still self-value collusions /S leveraged against what's known, what's declassified, what James Madison detailed about the breaching method multi-front against every human difference. And with and as the only permitted natures of reliefs and beliefs enabling bodies, also collusion /S. The breaching method needs a bunch of criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments for hyper additional reasons apparent to hide behind and through. As its roles, keeping its identity of relativity to ourselves from discernment of its roles with why and how really only criminal insidious natures of positive treatments and negative treatments are simultaneously. Again, to keep that, because every identity has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously, the way nature already does. Is an extent, and it is where it is making more and more positive unto itself, unobstructed nature's complete identity relationship to itself. Here, our differences forced from here, where only our species body is self-valued, being having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence, right where no one self-values it. You guys need to pay attention to the first principles, to use the phrase of Judge Napolitano. Fox News has Judge Napolitano's Facebook page. And Whiting Forensics has rules with digital crimes, with digital abusers of every age and nature. There are people on my street who have roles with identity theft, fraud, slander from other areas, planted evidence on my street when I was a kid, with people who did it when I was a kid, tied to like a Robert Rodriguez. I only saw him on my street 2 times. I never had communications with him. He confirmed what he said on Facebook. Then they took my Facebook page. These are people increasingly with the Connecticut's judicial branch offices in conjunctions to it and to that. And people tied to a Robert Rodriguez involved with home break-ins in the area through time, years apart too, and brought up at the same time, as the same ones involved in intercities with murders and untimely deaths brought up at the same time. And 1 years apart and insidious stuff tied to it that then again happened with the same house /us tied to that. This is also a method that makes everyone say, well, he said, she said, where that's used remotely since you guys were kids, where there were predicate acts with facts, collusion /S self-act because you were kids. It's gotten away with. Why? You guys it's not trying for their safety. where and how they have the campuses insulated. They have organized crimes against your kids. They have only allowed counters to types of crimes as collusion/S with them. There was victims advocates years ago with the Britain Superior Court who are increasingly collusions with overt criminal enterprises and with people with sexual and medical offenders of kids and child abusers leaders of kids years apart first forest, and they have more then and now. They have two female judges. They have a whole bunch of judges, different courts, but two female judges with the British Superior Court involved with it, where their faith is more than just displaced. The syntax of courts A through Z. But these are also people with the World Trade Center attack, and the court next to it had its identity used remotely the morning of the World Trade Center attack, and before that, the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center tower. And people with the name Scalora are interstates, Florida, New York, and Connecticut, and other states. Collusion/S with people who have roles with home break-ins in my area, and fake ties and fake nature ties to me. As people with Central Connecticut State University, also involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and their family members. They have organized crimes also with the elderly homes, with the ones at the same time who brought collusions with the child abusers, years of kids. These are places where each age of weakness and of strength, which are simultaneous for each age, leveraged against by this breaching method consciously. And psychiatry interagencies is criminally foreign influenced while tactically delusions raw. Worse than criminal incompetence and collusion/S alone, because they would also use/S of it and of location/S. It's as a location/S collusion/S that nobody wanted collusions with. Specifically, that for everyone to explain that. And it'd be, oh, I understand. The guilt is it comes through the discernment of the predicate action method/S. But to discern that, we have to show the guilt of all names on all sides of cases in the courts interstates. There are courts. So there's the court in the World Trade Center attack context has collusions with people. Also, a Phil Cololo has collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and whiting forensics, and prisons, people with state corrections officers and judicial branch officers involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, and criminally foreign influence uses of databases. Hyper-additionally, as collusions hyper-additional with how the breaching method used and uses databases in the algorithm/S that humanity is all about as the human species volume science. The human species body, the individual species body of individual bodies. Again, with all group differences between species bodies generated too. So we could discern what is distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous/hyper simultaneous is three distinct identities of relationship to itself that the rest of the complete nature of nature, the rest of the complete identity of nature has. And for the science of teaching this, we have to have the scientific value of how it is neither are. We have to label, name that which is neither our species body nor the other species bodies, but while it is all things anyway. We have to agree about that name. But we have to pick one. In other words, and try to understand it. If someone says, "Oh, it doesn't make sense," there are things like, in other words, someone says, "Oh, I don't understand. You have black people's white side. What's that have to do?" It's opinion. This is science. It's recorded at all ages and natures of sciences, including research campuses. They have roles with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, which is to discern this properly, you have to discern how and why. For first principles, as they should probably be, they cannot properly be spoken for. And can only be spoken for the breaching method, announcing for the breaching method too, when, trying to debate and screening how our campuses have replaced how James Madison's plan and plural founders, and how and why the plural founders had to counter-extort everyone. And trying to pretend that they're against dictator while there was slavery entrenched, there's miscorrelation there. And there are delusions there. We can't get them on paper legitimately because there are wire crime acts and methods as evidence. Fox News, CBS, and NBC have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Please help me, you guys. You guys are obligated to. And that's where you're guilty, where you hide and plot. Don't hide and plot with CBS. And CBS, repent for them. Just blame it on them, and we'll blame it on them together, the personally people involved. Putting little kids, fake ties to doctors, ones who have been doing little things and putting fake ties between kids that never even communicated. And they try to do little magic tricks to make other, and then go have someone tell and put something negative about someone in a database for their own kid, not just for their own kids, because they're hurting their own kids at the same time, but there are other names involved with them. The Britain Superior Court has a bunch of people tied to a Leahy family, and one's named Lombardo, and people tied to a Kevin Dillon, and their rules with the drugs and medicines. Then they're going to go speak about research and care for people. In other words, they owe more money with just a few people. They have more scams with just a few people than there are streets in Hartford and in Wethersfield. I don't even know where they live, this Leahy family, but they have roles of identity theft, fraud, things, wire crime acts and methods, mail crime acts and methods. They are recorded demonstrating this to other countries and into the hyper-foreign that keeps here and there things like criminal foreign influences blamed wrongly until that is true more and more, because it needs to hide how nature has been demonstrating to us. One of the things witch trials are about, even if they're totally made up, it's about why and how Webb House was right next to it. Now it's renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. It's about what the narratives there and defenses of it are used to sense for and announce for the breaching method. If anyone tries to speak properly, what they should have been, the syntax there. They have distinctly, but not distinctly, they have replaced what our founders left to have communicated at the founding locations. They have employments of knowledge of good and evil used to get over on first principles as directed, taught to us by nature itself. Having black people as whites of eyes is inseparable from how a breaching method directed. People pretending, how they could get away with pretending it's debatable that the elections were criminally foreign influenced / hyper criminally foreign influenced. See, when they would try to debate those things, it would surface demonstrations / us are the same. You have people making off. The breaching method showed everyone they need to offensively make fake examples of themselves with freedom of press. They have wire crime acts and methods with the people who answer the phones, distinctly from the people that are broadcasting collusion / and already broadcasted collusion / s next to all natures of crime scenes. Know how the news is right next to a crime scene, even preemptively when they're not covering. It wasn't even about a crime. Know how the breaching method used and uses location / s. The suburbs were designed to cause criminal negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Little kids could discern how those buildings behind the people in rap videos were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and to measure and maintain all identities only allowed to counter such, only capable of, enforced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to improperly too, blame other things other than ourselves for the real causes. Then of people who are killers. Then of people who do other crimes. Because they have this predicate acts with facts method /s on that. Then they're going to pretend they study it. Those campuses, oh, well, that's research. What's your research? Those campuses have collusion /s with people involved with the World Trade Center attack. Our countries have natures of industries where while there is not enough jobs, there are industries that were employed, only capable of having nature demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And use and collusion /s with use of all the collusion /s to force, trick, hurt, and persuade other things, other /s or selves to be blamed for nature's demonstration /s of that. And again, until that was true, more and more too. But then even when it was true, appreciated counters or not, tactical terrier. And what could then defend that and afford to have nature's roles with that with difference. It is male, female, and the difference is value too. Equally increasingly value. Because it's about a trinity. It's about the nature, the identity of the nature that is generating all things at the same time. Has three distinct hyper-invisible but still discernible parts of itself that are only increasing value. And that generated the physical differences of male, of female, and of that other identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible. Only through how it is a relativity, while being the only increasing value of the difference between male and female. And remember, a special difference is guy. And some things the religious messengers and our founders had to leave in the form of cipher for us to decipher. For example, when Jesus Christ says that he is the Alpha and he is the Omega, this is about these three identities of relativity to itself, to the rest of its complete self. And it's only increasing value here, or it is forced away from here as forced nature, space nature transfer, as identities, volume / hypervolume science, and the slash being one of the three parts, like cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall. /s, and with the identity not just of the plant or the body of life, but with the water and the elements and the gases. And this constant conversation about positive or negative per nature's way of demonstrating to us with science capable, properly debated. This breaching method needs people to sense for and to announce for the breaching method when anyone tries to address. Right where there are obligations still long forsaken at campuses A through Z. Even when there's blame with that. And with people and things guilty of it. Again, don't pay attention. Don't pay attention. Everyone's leaving out the breaching method. That's why that's still true. And counters to it, the prisons never stopped having collusions with the crime scenes. Sandy Hook prison have collusions with their prisoners and with crime scenes before they were caught. Whiting forensics. And crimes against innocent people. They give them a big bail. Lie about their motivations for it. This is database illusion stacking where and how this breaching method shows and showed each identity of the names of the people of sciences. They need to hide how it uses them. relative to everything that was brought to them syntactically and to their perception relative. This breaching method played you guys at countries A through Z and through yourself, /S. Now as systems tactical ulterior from the human species body of individual bodies. So the difference of again, they're making examples of free speech and freedom of press that they know are not, and they're being used to censor and to announce for the breaching method. Please get me off of Faith Conversations with CBS News, Tulsi Gabbard. And this is through administrations. And these are ones with all the countries in the news. So I could show you how they were used to their family members at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and where and how they have subject treatments with the campuses, where and how they're actually manifest too. Departments in appreciation of the difference /S of the names of the sciences. Vaccines. They share an identity. Vaccine makes us shush to hear what makes no sound, but to understand why and how, I'll gather round. And boxing prefers the shush sound. And sometimes martial arts prefer the shush sound. Or martial arts semi-prefer the shush sound. And wrestling does not prefer the shush sound. And the sciences are individually grouped in together with all things, even if something is made up. This hyper-volume science is inseparable from it, distinctly as the order of the finite, the smallest finite detail. The difference of that with art, even the active details and or grouped and the simultaneous. Everything comes with the / hyper simultaneous. Trinity, the body of Christ. This comes with cipher to finish. You guys can't be even honest about the first part of the Old Testament that says only depend right here, where the names of the people, the sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. You guys can't be honest about the part with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And you got, which comes after that part. And you guys can't be honest about the difference of it. And the people who have been roles with sustained subject treatments with types of rights can't defend their logic with that and their nature of logic with that without self-value collusion /S with wire crime acts and methods, with sense and sensibilities, narrative and natures at campuses A through Z that only could have stayed manifest so long relative to, inside the nature debate. You guys have logic and natures of logic that are reliant upon having been used insidiously. The syntax of the people of history, with it pretended not realized how the databases were all criminally foreign influenced / hyper-criminally foreign influenced. There's that breaching method that had slavery through other countries, plural, through sickly distinctly through them, but sickly non-distinctly through them too. And with the North and South, we're not supposed to entertain the North or the South blamed for slavery. We're supposed to blame the hyperform that only permitted counters to it through internationally monitored conversations and more on the record, off the record there than was it. None of that was legitimate. Let's get them on paper, one name in sequence, please. Tulsi Gabbard, this is before and after the World Trade Center attack. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has roles with leasing agents in intercities and a whole bunch of people tied to a Phil Cololo involved with whiting forensics, involved with Weathersfield Police Facebook page too. And the Wethersfield police faked me being at the police station and speaking with them as a kid and as an adult. I only saw one time real quick in the news. The news putting things, they say, oh, where's your evidence? They're hiding what's actually recorded. The news people and their sources too. I know that there's people with the name O'Neill with the campuses in West Hartford involved with their kids from Wethersfield too, and with Whiting forensics and wire crimes with them. Identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, with proven sexual and medical offenders of kids years apart, and leaders of kids, and the networks, WTNH and the FBI next to them, and other names, intercities with that spots next to them, and next to the other networks. The differences of guilt is manifest there too. U/S of that is hyper evidentially recorded. We have to be led by what not leaving out what our founders communicated. There are lawyers also recorded incapable of following the law legitimately and only capable of self-valuing having been because of the criminally foreign influence uses of the syntax of the names of the people, the sciences, and of their natures and of the difference of that. Specifically per a method to keep collusions plural, to hide behind and through, and preemptively. Please get them on paper, one name and sequence. These are people next to the campuses I went where I roles with the World Trade Center attack and Saudi Arabia too. Through some Mendez police with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and people with Mexico, people with Cuba, people with Canada, as the ones with all different, and people interreligious spots, and proven child abusers, leaders of kids years apart, tied to a DeMora family. Also with rape confessions involved with people tied to the DeMoras, with the Mendez police that faked conversation with me at the police station, falsifying multiple falsified police reports for the same arrest. And the arrest was recorded, affected to make cover-ups of what I caught them doing with a proven principal child abuser leader of kids, with ones that were already involved with ones years apart. And I never had a class with Eric Mendez nor with his brother. I barely know them. I don't know them at all. They try to make it look like exceptions with that. They have something to do with the food bag too, with the Justin Klovinskis and Eric Jensen, with multiple agencies in the other countries and federal criminals involved with their neighbors, who are also involved with drugs and medicines crimes with judges, prosecutors, victims advocates with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, other countries in the news for longer than lifetimes, longer than they were alive. There's a collusion /S here.